Welcome back. Chapter 2, Identity and Culture in a Globalizing World, right? Identity, like this young man's story right before we started recording. Sometimes identity can be hard to identify. Sometimes it can be hard to observe. Okay? Identity is something that fluctuates. You know, it's hopefully not the same as you age, right? Like hopefully you're not the same person 20 years from now, right? Because like, why would you want to be mentally stuck as a 15-year-old when you're 35, right? Your life's not going to go very well, you know? Right? The things you think are important now, hopefully they shift for the better. You can just walk around the back of the camera. And culture, how does culture change in a globalizing world? You know, when you have so much access to information, so much access to video, all that kind of stuff, okay? No way it's gonna do this. All day it's been doing this. All day. Let's move on. Okay, couple of questions to focus us in on for this chapter. Obviously, to what extent should globalization shape identity? I believe that's your unit question. But how does globalization, how does this interaction of whether it's information, ideas, things, how does that impact people's identities? In what ways are you changed by new experiences? And how is your identity influenced by the groups you are a part of? Oh boy, I'm going to introduce you to the coolest music out there in this unit. Okay, just remind me because I'm very forgetful. Okay. Some key terms, you're going to want to write these down. Okay. You got your individual identity, that's you, right? Right. And fortunately, you know, maybe the jury's still out, but like in our society, you do get to be recognized and valued as an individual, right? Now, for some time, we treated you as unique, right? Because you are, right? Like all of you are unique in your own way, which is a good thing at times. It's not always good, but you know, jury's still out on that as well. Now, as that evolves, you know, maybe we're getting to the situation like you found where people are a little too unique, right? And maybe we take that to too high of a standard, this idea of the individual identity, right? You're still nestled within a variety of groups. You're still nestled into your biology. There are biological realities, you know, like you can't just be, you know, a Martian. Be like, oh, I'm ET. You're still a person. Okay. You know, everyone's gonna die one day. You know, these are biological realities, but your individual identity is unique to you. It can be made up of various physical or personality traits, right? If you particularly identify with them, right? Like, does anyone feel really? Actually, I saw this. Comment on a video. This person said, blue eyes people always remind you they have blue eyes, right? And it's like people identify with physical traits, right? And you know, some people feel very proud that they have blue eyes, or that they have long hair or short hair or brown hair, black hair, whatever it is, right? People can identify with that. Personality traits, you know, some people might identify with the fact that they're humorous. I think some people might proudly identify with other personality traits. Your personal experiences are what shapes the uniqueness of your individual identity. So, you know, all of you grew up more or less in Leduc. Some of us grew up outside of Leduc, but that's okay. How that impacts you, how that affects you is slightly different from everyone else. You know, you all have hobbies, I hope. Most of your hobbies might just be like scrolling on a phone, which is kind of sad, or doing whatever you're doing on your tablet, right? I don't know. Right? Some of us play sports, right? Some of us draw, play hangman on the board when we should be doing our questions. Some of us, our hobbies are napping. And as I mentioned, you know, all of that is nestled in within these different collective or group identities, right? You're still nestled into groups. So you're an individual, You still probably more or less identify with a collective identity. You're all experiencing grade 10 together. How many of you have gone to school with people here roughly for a couple of years? Right? Okay. It's part of your collective identity. It could be your background as well, where you're from, whatnot, all that kind of stuff. Your sense of belonging might come from a group rather than as an individual. It's kind of hard to belong as just an external or one individual. And your experiences, whatever, everything else with your individual collective identity can, perhaps lead to various biases that you have for or against certain things, right? So, for example, in Canada and Alberta, like how many of you watch hockey? Like how many of you have watched a hockey game at one point in your life? Okay, so I see like majority of hands going up. Some people are just not raising their hands. You never watched a hockey game? Nope. I can't say your names because I'm recording. You never? Yeah. So why didn't you raise your hand? See his individual identity. He likes to be cool and unique, so he didn't vote. Okay. How many of you have watched like a soccer game at least once in your life? A lot less, right? And so the culture, the collective culture you grow up in, the bias is in favor of something like hockey as opposed to something like soccer. Right? Okay. Just to give you some ideas there. So as already mentioned, your identity is dynamic. Do you understand what this word means? No way, you're all so shy for the camera. Thank you back there.
It can change.
It's changing, right? Dynamic, there's static, there's dynamic, right? Think about the stretches. For those of you who play sports, static stretches, you're in one spot. Dynamic stretches, you're moving for them, right? Your identity is dynamic, right? You could watch a TikTok video tomorrow, and then that becomes your new personality, right? And then the day after, there's a new trend, and that's your new personality, and it keeps changing, right? Or, you go from one school to another, and now you're involved with a different group of people. You're part of a different collective. Your identity starts to shift and change, and for all of you, you're all in a very formative time in your life. Formative meaning like your identity right now is very malleable. Do you understand what this word means? It's a bit of a science word, right? Not just bendy. Malleable, it means you can like shape it, right? So think about maybe you don't know this. Gold is very malleable, right? Like you can take gold and you can thin it down to like very thin wire, very thin chips in cell phones and whatnot. Steel, less so, right? Steel is not very malleable. It's very it stays the same, right? But your identity is very malleable, right? Your experiences as you go through high school, like, I don't know how much it happens in your time, but like back in my day, kids really got bullied. Like some kids had a bad time going through high school, and that dramatically impacted their experience of the world of life. It shaped their personality. In my grade 9 class, we were just doing an inclusion, exclusion, voting rights lesson, and I asked them, how many of you, and I'll ask as well, raise your hand, how many of you ever had the most traumatic experience of being picked last in gym class? Okay. You got picked last? Wow. Okay. Or even worse yet, and I don't know if you kids even experience this, being picked last in recess. They're picking teams. Did you kids even like do stuff outside in recess, like play sports and games? Oh. Okay. Or was it just like cell phones out there? Right? So like imagine you're always picked last for everything. How do you think that shapes your identity? How do you think you think about yourself, right? So your identity is always changing. Okay. What? Yeah. No, genuinely though, if you're always picked last, let's say sports is very prioritized. There's a bias wherever you are for sports, and you're not athletic, and you're always picked last. You're gonna think you're a loser, and then maybe one day you go to art class or drama or like paper plane throwing contest, and like you really crush it. You're like, wow, I'm not a loser. Your identity rapidly changes when you find something you can actually do well. And it's really cool, right? And people gain a lot of self-confidence in that regard. Yes, you're gonna have to go to the washroom. No?
No. I mean, like, but if they're always getting picked last, it's probably like reason.
Yeah, there might be legitimate reasons for why someone's getting picked last. It's like we're being honest, right? Which I love honesty, right?
Just not good.
Maybe you're not good. Maybe it has nothing to do with your skills. Maybe you're really good, but you're a bit of a jerk, right? No one likes you, or you're a ball hog.
Or it could be bias. Like some people would choose their friends.
Some people only choose their friends, right? And if you got no friends, going back to your point, maybe the problem is you. I don't know, right? Or maybe you leave high school and you realize, wow, everybody in my high school was closed-minded imbecile. And then you discover a new group of people outside of high school. Your identity rapidly changes. Hopefully, right? Hopefully. Why are you making a weird face? I'm joking. Stop turning around. Stop looking. Stop rubbernecking. Okay?
Rubbernecking?
Yeah, you're rubbernecking. You're twisting your neck around. Okay? Obviously, so you start your identity first gets shaped and formed by your home life. Right? It's kind of sad this one day. It was a community event, and we were trying to put some stuff away into a big closet area, and about this high off the ground, this middle-aged mother and maybe a 5th or 6th grade, her daughter in 5th or 6th grade, very small. They were trying to put something up and they couldn't do it, right? The mother couldn't do it and the child couldn't do it, right? The mother couldn't do it because she was quite large. The child couldn't do it because the child was small and weak. And it was interesting.